Hey everybody, welcome to my channel and welcome back to Cinematically Late, the series where I talk about movies that I may have missed for whatever reason, whether they be in theaters and I just missed it, or they've been out for a long time and I just never got around to watching it. Today we are talking about the cult classic from 1988, and that is Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Now before we get started, I just want to preface and say that this is the oldest movie that we have had on Cinematically Late thus far. We are like 20-something episodes in, and 1988 is apparently the oldest that I've gotten so far. We will have older at some point, I'm sure, but so far this movie's going to hold the record. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into it. So the reason that I actually saw this movie was my wife wanted to watch it after we had watched a horror documentary on a application called Shudder, which we have through Amazon Prime. I've talked about it before. I think it was in my room, or the room, not the Tommy Wiseau movie of Cinematically Late, where it was a movie that was a Shudder exclusive or Shudder original. This one is not a Shudder original, but it is currently streaming on Netflix. So if you have not seen it or want to see it after this video, you can go ahead and go check it out right after. So this movie is hands down a B horror movie. It was not meant to be taken seriously. And let's just go ahead and get right into it because it's just absolutely ridiculous. So Killer Klowns from Outer Space is about these aliens that essentially come from outer space and they're killer clowns. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of description to this. It's in the title. But what's so great about it, and this is point number one, is that it's so hilariously bad that it's great. It's so bad, it's good, and it's just so much fun. And it's kind of interesting because this was a movie that when I was strolling through Blockbuster back in the day, this was a movie that I often avoided. Mainly because it was just a movie that didn't vibe with me. Like, I didn't like the cover art. I didn't like this creepy face that I have in the background. But now that I'm an adult, it's obviously not scary. And when you get to see a lot of the clowns in this movie, it's not scary, it's actually funny. And it's that level of B-rate horror that makes it just so much fun. It's ridiculous, it's dumb, it's stupid, but it's so much fun because it is so bad. And I think that when they were making this movie, they did it with the intention that we want to have fun, but still kind of have those horror elements with like the blood and like a couple of other things, but they're creative. So they were kind of ahead of their time in this when they were using things like cotton candy, popcorn as like various aspects, confetti explosions, all these sorts of weird things that you wouldn't see a lot of. And I think that they were just really creative in a lot of the approaches that they took, even though they were on a tight budget. But it's just so much fun. Now, the next point that I want to make is that although this movie is fun, they try, and I put try in capital letters here, they try to make it scary. They try to make you fearful of these clowns. I did like a lot of the aspects that they did in terms of having a variety of clowns. I thought that was creative. The way that, like I mentioned before, the way that they use certain things like cotton candy, sort of like and balloons as sort of like capture devices, the popcorn that kind of creates like these egg baby clown things, all sorts of weird things that were meant to be horrific for the time. Obviously, seeing it in 2020 with the horrific things we have going on outside, it's nothing in comparison, but it is a lot of B-rate horror that they try to make it gross. They try to make things that will kind of creep you out. If you have a fear of clowns, I'm sorry, but this one is just absolutely absurd, and it really shows. And the fact that a lot of these characters even didn't take the clowns seriously and were scared of them in the movie, I think adds to that funny aspect of it, because they were meant to be scary clowns. But like when they show up people's doors and like essentially kidnap or kill them, they're not afraid. Like, they actually think it's funny and they talk to them as if they were just like, oh, hello, how are you? And I think that is just absolutely absurd. Even in one of the scenes, there's a cop who's totally neglected to wanting to believe these things are real, and he encounters a clown. They have a whole interaction. The clown doesn't say a word, but he doesn't take it as they're scary despite him being his size or larger. Instead, he just sort of sees it as, what is this idiot doing? And that kind of makes me think, in today's world, if this movie were to be remade, and I think there was rumors of a sequel at one point, is what exactly would happen in a reboot of this? Would you make it scary? Would you make it funny? I don't really know. I think it has to be that nice balance of both because it is so absurd. You can't have killer clowns from outer space and not really have too much to go off of there. So I think if they want to remake a movie, Hollywood, remake this one, because although it's a classic and is stupid and horrible in all the wrong ways, it's also great in all the right ways. Now, the only negative that I have to say about this movie, and this is kind of a stretch for a negative because they weren't going for story, is I think the story is probably one of the worst aspects of it. There's zero explanation to any of this. The clowns just sort of arrive and just start taking over with no real motive that we're aware of. So I wish there would have been a little bit more story there. They focus more on the sort of love triangle of these three main characters more than anything that has to do with the killer clowns. The clowns are just silent creatures taking over. So I think that there could have been a little bit more story, but I'm gonna give it a pass because it's just so much fun and stupid at the same time. This movie is just right up my alley. And the fact that it took me so long to see it, it kind of makes me sad. I could have been watching this movie for years, but the fact that I get to watch it as an adult, not be scared, not focus on these scary giant clowns overtaking a town or possibly the world, but rather just having fun and watching the stupidity of terrible acting mixed with a ridiculous storyline that makes no sense, and just enjoying myself. And that's what I think Killer Klowns from Outer Space is really about, just enjoying yourself. Kind of like with my other reviews that I've talked about with things like Sucker Punch and maybe a couple of other cinematic lates that I've done in the past, you kind of just have to turn your brain off and just enjoy a movie for what it is. You don't have to be digging deep into the psyche of what the writers were creating. They were just in the 80s just trying to make cool effects, trying to make a business for themselves, and just have some fun doing it. And I think this movie is the prime example of all of those categories and more, and just comes together to make a really fun movie for adults or even kind of kids to watch. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. The only thing that I want to do is recommend that you go and watch Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Even if you've seen it before, go watch it again. It's a great time. It's only like an hour and a half. Totally worth it. Like I mentioned before, it is available now on Netflix if you do want to go check it out. If you have seen Killer Klowns from Outer Space, or if you clicked away and then came back to this video to finish the review, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you what your reaction to this movie was. I would love to find out. Also, while you're down there, make sure you leave this video a thumbs up if you did like it, as well as hit that subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos from me. Most importantly, that subscribe button, because I am doing a giveaway at 300 subscribers, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to be the winner of that giveaway. So make sure you're subscribed, make sure your friends are subscribed, and get me to 300, and we'll go ahead and do that giveaway. But before you go, like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button right over here, as well as check out my other Cinematically Late series, which is in this playlist just right up here. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.